Perfect. So in today's class, we're going to go with the next topic called subnet mask. Now, this is something which allows or determines the network and host portions for a class, of any class to a computer. So we humans understand network and host portions with the alphabets N and H. Class A has one network portion and 3 host portions. Class B has 2 network portions and 2 host portions. Class C has 3 network portions and 1 host portion. But how does a computer understand this? How does a computer know which IP belongs to which class and how many devices can it connect on? Okay, for that, what it does is it assigns the network portions with the values of 1s and the host portions with the value of 0s. Okay. Now, when you're assigning that, this is what the value for the network and host portions looks like in the binary format. With class A, where you have 1 network portion, they're all 1s in the first portion, and with the remaining 3 host portions, they're all 0s. And when you convert that from binary to decimal, the value for that is called the subnet mask. And the subnet mask for class A is 255.0.0.0. Okay. When a device has the subnet mask, it understands, okay, I am belonging to a class A network, and in my class A network, I can connect a maximum of 255 into 255 into 255 devices. Okay. In class B, where you have 2 network portions and 2 host portions, it has all 1s in the first 2 portions and all 0s in the last 2 portions. So therefore, when you convert that back to the decimal numbers, you have 255, 255.0.0. And finally, when you talk about class C, it has 3 network portions and 1 host portion. So all 1s in the first 3 portions and all 0s in the last portion. So the subnet mask is 255, 55, 255.0. So if you notice over here in my command prompt, if I type, IP config, I get the IP address information. And just below that, I see something called subnet mask. So this IP 192.168.0.5 belongs to class C. And that is the same exact thing denoted over here, 255, 255, 255.0. That belongs for class C. Okay. Now my computer knows, okay, since it belongs to a class C address, I can connect a maximum of 255 devices, not more than that. Okay, so that is what is defined by the subnet mask for the computer or for the information devices to know which IP belongs to which class. You already know what default gateway is, guys. This is the IP address for the router. Okay. Now comes the point on how do you assign a private IP to your system. Okay, so public IPs are anyhow assigned by the ISP, Internet Service Provider. But private IPs are in your control. You can assign them yourself manually, or you can assign them automatically as well from a DHCP server. Okay. So today we're going to learn how do we manually change the system's IP, or how do we get it automatically from a DHCP server as well. Okay. So firstly, if you had to change it manually from the control panel, there's a certain step. This is a certain path you have to follow. Okay. So first you go to control panel, then you go to network and internet, then network and sharing center, then change adapter settings. You right click on the adapter, go to properties, and then you set the following IP address in the IPv4 properties. The lengthy procedure. Let me show you this practically. Search for control panel. In control panel, go to network and internet, then network and sharing center, then change adapter settings. And here you get the list of all adapters on your system. Right now, the adapter I'm connected on is my Wi-Fi adapter. So I right click on that, click on properties.
These are all hardware NICs, right?
You only have one NIC, David. Okay, on one NIC you have all these interfaces. There were the components on that one singular and network interface card. You have the Wi-Fi adapter interface, the Ethernet adapter interface, the Bluetooth adapter interface. Okay, and some are virtual interfaces, VMware network adapters. Okay, so each of these.
So there is just one particular hardware chip, and it can do like Wi-Fi and Ethernet. It can also provide Ethernet connection and all those stuff.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So whichever adapter you want to change the private IP for, you right click on that, go to the properties, and in the properties you select IPv4 addresses, and in IPv4 you click on properties again, and here you assign the IP address. But right now I'm getting the IP automatically from a DHCP server. Okay, don't worry what a DHCP server is. I'm going to talk about that in a bit. Nothing to worry. But if you want to assign a manual IP, you click over here. You give the IP address of your choice. So first things first. Right now, my system is getting the IP of 192.168.0.5. Okay, if I have to change this, I specify that IP address here. Let's say if I want to assign 192.168.0. let's say 100, I specify that IP here. Subnet mask, since this is class C, it automatically assigns 255.255.255.0. Default gateway, that's your router's IP. 192.168.0.1. Now, it also asks you one more piece of information here, which is a DNS server. Don't worry what a DNS server is, because I'll talk about that in the upcoming sessions. Okay, but if you do not know what to enter here, you just go to your browser and search for Google DNS server IP, and that would provide you two IP addresses there. One is 8.8.8.8 and the other one is 8.8.4.4, and you can enter either one of them over here in the configuration settings. Prefer DNS 8.8.8.8 or 8.8.4.4. Okay, don't worry what these IPs are, guys. Don't worry what a DNS server is. I'll talk about that in a later stage. But for now, these are the pieces of information that you have to assign or give to the computer for it to change the IP address successfully. Now, when I change the IP, we might lose our connection. We might get disconnected from the meeting, guys. So I won't do that. Okay, but if you want to try it out, I would recommend you try the same thing on your system and verify once if it is changing the IP or not. Okay, but this is the actual method. You enter the IP address, you enter the subnet mask, the default gateway, which is your router's IP. Okay, and then you enter the DNS server IPs 8.8.8.8 or 8.8.4. Even if you enter one of them, that's more than sufficient. Okay, now as mentioned, there's another alternative method: obtain an IP address automatically. Now, what does this method mean? How do I get this IP automatically? So if it's a small network, guys, you can assign the IP manually to each and every system in the network. So let's say if in my organization, if I have 10 devices, so me going to each system and manually assigning an IP in this method is not so tough task. It's quite, again, slightly time taking, but it is possible. But when you work for MNCs, multinational companies, where you have thousands and thousands of systems, in such a scenario, you going to each system and assigning an IP manually is not possible. Actually, it's quite a hectic task. So that is why they invented a protocol called the DHCP protocol. It stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. Now, from the name itself, you can figure out what it does. So if I go to my browser, if I search for DHCP, as you can see, it's called as Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. So the main purpose of it is to dynamically or automatically configure an IP address to every host in the network. Okay, so if you're connecting any device in the network and if that network contains a DHCP server, that DHCP server's responsibility is to assign an IP address to that device automatically. Okay, and that happens with the basis of something called the DORA process. So I'm going to talk about DORA process now. So again, just go back to your, let's go back to the presentation. 1 second, please. Yeah. So if you go back to the presentation here, this is what a graphical representation looks like in a network when you have a DHCP server. Usually in our home networks, our Wi-Fi router itself acts as a DHCP server. So that DHCP server has a pool of IP addresses. If this is getting the first IP, 192.168.0.1, it has from the next IP, it has a pool of IPs. And from that pool, it assigns each system a new IP address there. And that the process with which it assigns that IP is called the DORA process. So let's talk about that process now. Okay. So usually when you connect or bring a new device in the network, let's say if I've connected a new laptop in my Wi-Fi network, first thing I do is I enter the Wi-Fi password. After I enter the Wi-Fi password and when I click on connect, what my system starts doing is it starts replicating a packet. It starts broadcasting a packet. That packet is called a discover packet. So what it does is it sends that discover packet to every other system in the network. It broadcasts that packet. So basically the main purpose of that discover packet is to figure out where the DHCP server is. So it asks each and every system in the network, are you the DHCP server? Because I'm new to this network and I'm looking for an IP. So when it reaches the other systems which are not DHCP, they just drop the packet. They don't respond to it in any way. But when this packet, when the discover packet reaches the server 192.168.0.1, which is my DHCP server, that server can offer an IP address now. So it sends an offer saying, hi, I figure out that you're new to this network and I can offer you an IP address 192.168.0.5, let's say. For that offer, which is received by the client, it says, hi, thanks for offering me that IP. I request you to allocate that IP to my system and do not allocate it to anyone else. And with that request, your DHCP server sends an acknowledgement saying, hi, this is my confirmation where I'm assigning this IP to you, and it is removed from my pool, just so that I don't assign it to someone else. I've assigned it to you, and it is again removed from my pool completely. And this whole procedure of discover, offer, request, and acknowledgement stands for the DORA process. D for discover, O for offer, R for request, and A for acknowledgement. And all of this happens in a span of a second, max to max, not more than that. If you have ever had an Android phone, guys, I'm pretty sure you must have observed this procedure as well. When you enter the correct Wi-Fi password and when you click on connect, for a very short duration, you see a message saying obtaining IP address. So that message is when the DORA process is occurring between your phone and the Wi-Fi router. Okay. So as mentioned, guys, in our home network, the Wi-Fi router itself acts as a DHCP server. In real time, they can assign a separate device for it if they want to. Okay, but just to show you this practically, I can go to my browser and I can log into my router here with the router's IP. This is my router's IP. Let me log into my router. Yeah, once logged in, you would notice this is also the DHCP server. So my TP-Link router in my network is also acting as a DHCP server, which is getting the first IP, and here is the pool. From 0.2, I'm using the pool up to 199. I'm not using all the 255 devices. I'm limiting it up to 199. So if I want, I can change that. Okay, and you can notice after that, 2, 4, 5, 6, each of these IPs is assigned to a certain system, to a certain client in my network. Okay, and every device has a lease time. So again, lease time is for 1440 seconds, minutes, which indicates 24 hours. So after 24 hours are done, if the device is inactive, that IP goes back to the DHCP server. If it is active, again, if the device is active, it performs the DORA again, and it gets the same IP or a different IP after that. So this lease time is implemented just so that IPs are not wasted. If you assign an IP to a system from a DHCP server, and the next minute if the device goes down, that IP is wasted, right? So what they do is they allocate it only for a certain amount of time. After that time, if the DORA process doesn't occur again, the IP goes back to the pool of the DHCP server. Okay, is that clear? Scott, David, what DHCP protocol is? Any questions? David, Scott.
Till now, it's fine.
Perfect. Let's go into the next protocol, guys. We'll talk about DNS servers now. So basically, when you talk about DNS servers, they are like the phone book for the internet. Okay, they're the internet's phone book. Okay, so what I mean by that is, if you have a phone, doesn't matter what platform it be, Android or macOS or AppleOS, you would have a common application called Contacts. What does that Contacts application do? It links every contact name with a 10-digit contact number. So we humans are pretty terrible at remembering contact numbers, right? So what we do is we assign a contact name to every contact number, and the next time when we want to call them up, we search their contact by their name itself. Okay. Now your SIM card, your 10-digit SIM card, has no relevance with what you're saving their contact as. The only relevant information it needs is what number to contact and what is its own 10-digit contact number. Okay, and a connection forms between these two 10-digit numbers. Okay, it is least concerned with what you save the name as. Similarly, when you go to a browser, and in the browser, when you search for www.google.com, your browser actually doesn't understand this language. It finds it very gibberish and it doesn't understand what google.com means. So what it does is it sends this request to a DNS server, where in a DNS server, you have records. In that record, you have the information for each domain and its related IP address. So if there's google.com, then google.com is located on so-and-so IP. Bing.com located on so-and-so IP. YouTube.com located on so-and-so IP. Slow.com located on so-and-so IP. So when you're sending a request for google.com, that goes to ISP first. From there, it reaches a DNS server owned by them. Okay. And from there, it knows, okay, this is the IP I have to travel to. Okay. Because over the internet, the only routable traffic happens on public IPs. So it needs to know what the public IP is of google.com. And that information is obtained from DNS servers. They do the job of linking every domain name with its exact IP address and vice versa. Okay. If I show you this practically, I can just go to my command prompt, and I can run the command called ping, P-I-N-G, www.google.com. Ping is a connectivity, again, a connectivity or troubleshooter command, just to figure out if you're able to connect to the internet or to a certain device. It sends something called ICMP packets and waits for a response. So when I hit enter, you can see this packet's being sent and I'm getting a reply as well. But the reply comes from a certain IP here, 142.215.193.164. So if I copy this IP, if I go to my browser, and if I paste this IP here, and if I hit enter, carefully observe what happens, guys. I get Google's website. So this was the actual IP for google.com, but we don't need to remember it. We can just remember the domain name google.com, all thanks to a DNS server, which does the job of linking every domain name to its exact public IP. Okay, so that is what a DNS server does. It's like a phone book for websites, okay, linking every domain name with its IP address information. Just like how you have a contacts app on your phone, linking a name to a number, here a DNS server links again domain names to IP addresses. As simple as that. Okay. Any questions or doubts regarding this, guys? Scott, David?
Not yet.
Right. So again, I was supposed to take a slightly longer session today, guys, but again, the strength is a bit low. No one has joined from the Institute DURGASOFT today for some reason. Both of you are my references itself. So what we'll do is, again, we'll end the session a bit short here today, guys, because again, it wouldn't be good unless if I take a longer session on that link. So we'll just wait for today. Again, tomorrow we'll check out if it's working or not. If not, we'll take a much longer session. Doesn't matter what the strength is. I'll take a session on my link itself, okay, for the both of you. And
Sure.
yeah, that's done, guys. Nothing further. A short session. We have a few more topics left out in networking. We'll cover that tomorrow, along with lab setup installation, how to install VMware, and also how to install the Kali Linux operating system. We'll have a much more practical session tomorrow where we'll learn the lab setup. Okay. So the few more topics are left out here. After DNS server, we have to talk about special IPs. Okay, and after special IPs, we talk about CIDR. There are these two topics left out in networking. So we'll cover these tomorrow, along with the lab setup installation. Okay.
So this is kind of an introduction into that. Actually, this is like a demo.
This is one of the most important prerequisites, Scott. Okay, so when you're talking about cybersecurity, it's very important that you know about IP addresses, DNS servers, DHCP servers. It's important in any domain inside in IT. But for cybersecurity, you have a very much relevance for IP addresses or importance for IP addresses. So that is why I start the course usually with networking concepts. Okay, so this is one of the prerequisites, not a concept related to cybersecurity, but it's an IT department concept which is well used in cybersecurity.
Okay, fine.
I think from next week, like the full class will be there.
Yeah, we're going to have the full 1 hour sessions, David.
1 hour sessions from
It doesn't matter if it's from DurgaSoft or not. I'll be taking up the sessions at least for the both of you, and we'll cover it up. We'll complete the course.
Okay.
So you will mostly take like 30 hours to complete the course?
Again, we have classes for 35 days in total, Scott.
Oh,
we have classes only again on Mondays and Fridays. So on a rough average, it's around 25 hours or so. 24 to 25 hours of content.
Like 6 weeks, 5 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, you could say so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So that's that. Nothing further for our class today, guys. We're gonna exit the session now. And Scott, you can call me now. You said you had some questions.
Yes. Okay then.
Sure.
Yeah.
Go.
Catch up.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll catch up tomorrow at the same time. Bye-bye.
Bye.